Have you always been someone that's been full of life and, loved life, like you said?
Honestly, I would say like the 80-20% rule, I think would apply. Like, I think there's been definite moments in my life where I'm like, God, why isn't this way? Or how come I don't have that? I didn't get married. I mean, I grew up Mennonite. Like
Mhm.
all the people I went to high school with, they were married by 20. Like it was wild having babies by 21. So like I had some shame around that. Like, what's the matter with me? And I moved to Calgary and was focused on career and totally just different world. And I struggled with mental health, especially growing up. um in high school, it was really like that was a big challenge, but I feel like where I'm at now, even in the midst of the hard stuff, I'm like, this is still like I still have a really amazing life. So like massive perspective shifts.
Mm.
But I've always like my default setting, I'm a cheerleader by heart. Like, let's do this, let's go.
I love that. When you grew up, was that small town Alberta or where was that?
Just outside of Winnipeg. So my parents are farmers just west of
Oh,
the
yes.
city. So I grew up on a farm there. And then I moved to Calgary when I was 21 with $300 in my bank account, no job, no plan, like a total idiot, like knew one person here.
It's crazy, but when you look back, I bet you that was one of the greatest decisions that you did make.
A thousand million percent. Like to see all of the aftermath that has come from that. I wish I would have I like tell people, I'm like, don't do what I do, like have money in the bank account, have something lined up. But I think almost not having a plan forced me to just like roll up my sleeves and get to work.
Yeah, there's no plan B, no safety net, nothing. It's like, this
Yeah.
is all I got. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
that's awesome. And so life, you were working in Calgary and all of a sudden you get married, life happens.
Yeah. My firstborn. So we had Swayze 4 months later. We looked at each other and we were pregnant. Like it was just wild. We were told by doctors because I had all this medical complexities, tons of stomach issues, endometriosis, celiac, like ton of female stuff that I don't need to get into detail on. But doctors like, you might not be able to get pregnant. And you're like, oh, that's awesome. And we had the exact opposite problem where we looked at each other and we're like, wow, we're pregnant. And so had Swayze, she was 3 4 months old, and we're like, and we're pregnant with another one. And that was not our plan. I wanted kids close together, but it was wild how quick it happened.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was in 2016,
Yeah.
Lewiston was born.
Yeah. May of 2016.
Yes.
Mhm.
So, first of all, I just gotta say is like it's amazing that you honor him daily and
Mm,
every breath that you guys take, he's with you every step, every move, and
yeah.
I absolutely adore that. I lost my mom 3 years ago. So is when there's something that's such a pillar, something that moves you, changes your perspective on life and understanding that life is short and
Mhm.
every day is a day to be grateful.
I think I think we have this view of life where like I kind of feel like we're more so at peace with death when you're in your 80s. Like you've had all your grandkids, you're kind of like your body's starting to ache, and like you're like maybe you've had one heart attack or like something. I feel like that's how we view life. Like you're a toddler, you're a kid, you have your career, your family, you build blah blah blah. Now you become a grandparent or whatever it is, and
Mhm.
you age out. So it's like seems that so when someone's like they died at 50 or whatever, you're just not, it just doesn't fit into the way we thought life would go, especially when you're losing your mom. You're like, but these are like, we're like at this awesome stage. So I'm sorry.
So now in life, you start doing certain things and you're like, holy shit, like I wish you were around for certain things that I'm doing for the better of my own life, right? Like, mom, look.
And your mom's typically your biggest cheerleader. So you're like, Mom, I'm doing the thing, like the thing
Yeah,
that we talked about, like
yeah,
I'm doing it. And you want her to witness in the amazing work that you're doing. She's
100%.
witnessing and it's just not the same way. So it kind of sucks.
Funny, well, my desk is over there, but I also have her desk
Oh.
set up the way she had it with her phone and her computer and her cell phone and everything. So it's like she's with me. And even, when she was on our way out, because we only had months to let you know how it is, right, with cancer, brain cancer.
I'm
So
sorry.
she just would write down all these things, and she was an entrepreneur too. So she was like, "Son, you got to do this." So I have all these papers of her talking to me, and it's so beautiful, to have those moments that a lot of people don't get. So cherish
Hmm.
them, and if they left you with a gift of something, I think you need to apply it and not waste it.
I always say, like, I believe like, okay, so sucky, because you would have gotten the exact same news. Hey, congratulations, you have this terrible disease. And by the way, like, we're giving you months to live. And you're like, oh Lord, like, oh, dagger to the heart. But what I saw in that was a blessing, because you're like, oh, like, I'm actually given my countdown, where I think a lot of times we then waste the time. And I always go back to like the Tim McGraw song, where it's like, I went skydiving. I'm not going to sing because I'll scare people away. But like, you then are like, oh, I'm going to just do the things and like really lean into that time, not take it for granted. Like,
Mhm.
oh, mama, I'll catch you next week. You're like, no, I'm not going to go to the event that I feel like I should, because, oh, it's the right thing to do or whatever. You're like, screw it. Your attention just gets so laser focused, because you know that it's so precious. And that really is true of life, except sometimes it takes a diagnosis and someone saying, FYI, not going to make your first birthday, or you have months to live. And that, I mean, I looked at that like a blessing, being like, wow, okay, we only have this much time. Let's make it
Mhm.
all count. Mm-hmm.
Much, but phases, right, in life. And for me, I
Mm-hmm.
focused, like you said, on those months. That's when my focus happened and my alertness, where I said, oh shit, this is all I have left is these moments. So you remember what she was wearing, you remember things. And back then you're just like, hey guys, hey mom, hey
Yeah.
dad, and just move on with life, right? You just, I'll call you
Don't you,
later. Yeah.
yeah, don't you find like you would squeeze a little bit longer? Like you'd hold a hug like a couple more seconds,
Yes.
and like you would, I feel like you press into those memories. Like I remember dancing with Lewiston, and I just remember like being like, I really don't care how stupid I look. Like, if this
Mhm.
is the last dance party, if this is the last moments that we get with him, I want it to be that I was all in. And now I just live like that. And I think people think I'm on some type of drug. I literally had someone be like, what kind of drug are you on? I was like, it's called the drug of life, and I
Yeah,
love
high
it.
on
Like,
life. Yes.
yeah.
One thing that we both went through was hope, holding on to hope, and
Mm-hmm.
praying for that miracle to happen.
Yeah.
How was that for you, and what was that journey like?
You know, the craziest thing, I mean, I go to church, it's no secret. And we were just talking, this family at our church, they had their daughter, like, insane, kind of same thing, brain thing, in ICU, non-responsive. Everyone's praying. They got their miracle. And like, that's when I get so mad and rageful, where I'm like, and I use a lot of choice words, but I'm like, what did I do wrong that I couldn't get
Yes.
my miracle? But my mom said this, and it changed my perspective of everything, because we were holding on to hope. And I felt like I lived in two worlds, which, can be a big, it can spend a lot of energy. That's how I chose it. Like, one was like, I was like, every doctor is going to be wrong. We're going to find a miracle drug. He's going to defy the odds. Like, he's going to be playing baseball. I was like envisioning his baseball game. I don't know why baseball,
Oh,
but
I
it's like,
love it.
I'm buying hot dogs for every doctor in that audience. I'm buying cans of Coke and popcorn, and they're going to be like, what? This kid was in ICU and was said he couldn't live. And that is not our story. He died, and we had a funeral, and like, here we are. But this hope piece is like, I prayed for that miracle. And my mom said this to me, and at the time I wanted to punch her in the face. She said, Jess, she's like, what if the miracle's after he dies? And I was like, oh, so now, like, a girlfriend met her husband at one of our fundraising events. Now she has like this amazing partner in life. Like, we've been able to bless families and give them these small little miracles, of like the gift of having a bike ride as a family, because we were able to buy an accessible bike, or the gift of taking their kid to the beach because we bought a special wheelchair. And like, all these little things that have come about where you've met new people or new experiences. And so, golly, like, I think this is life. You're like, you think it should go one way, like, live to your 80, this is how the timeline that I want stuff. Why am I not married yet, or whatever it is?
Mhm.
And then you're praying for this thing and it doesn't happen. And I think where people get disconnected is they usually throw in the towel, and then they like fold their arms and like, Mom, my life is just gonna
Yes.
suck.
And you get
And
bitter.
yeah, and resentful and angry, and they become assholes. There's a lot of them out there.
Oh, yes.
And but I will say there's way more good people than there are bad people. I'm looking for all the good. The a-holes, I just am like, tune them out, keep on moving forward. But I was like, imagine if you just shift and be like, all right, okay, we didn't get that miracle. What's next?
Mhm.
Where's it gonna be? And rather than sitting and waiting in the misery, you're like an anticipation. You're like all in. You're like, okay, where's it gonna be? What's gonna happen? How can I show up? What's the blessing? Where's that? Start doing that. Like, this is why literally I think people think I'm on crack cocaine, because I'm like, I'm like, what's next? What's happening? Yeah, we had some bad stuff happen. Okay. But it's like, okay, well, what's the next good thing? I don't want to waste my days. And I know you don't want to either, because you
No.
know that life is precious.
Oh, yes. And unfortunately, it had taken certain tragic moments for us to realize life is precious, didn't it?
Mm, yeah.
And the
And I think he,
friendships and the people around you,
mm,
it's everything matters. It's all time and energy, and that's all we have. That
mm.
exchange. Yeah.
I think it was Go Clean Go that they said time is the new currency. And I now say time is my most precious currency. Like money will come and go our whole lives. You make some, you lose some, you lose a
Mhm.
lot, whatever it is. You have none, you have lots, whatever it is. You give away, you build up your wealth and you do all these things. But like time is like that it is the most precious commodity, because when it's gone, like you don't get that opportunity to have it back. So like, how are you making your time matter, your moments matter? Then how do you make them count?
You know, for the listeners, Jessica, what was the story with Lewiston in 2016? So he was just shy of his 6 months, wasn't he?
Mhm.
His birth.
The long and the short of it, you can also buy my book on Amazon. I'm
Yeah.
shamelessly plugging myself.
Bring the joy.
Bring the joy. Amazon Prime that stuff, because I got some sitting in the warehouse in Vancouver, and I keep getting emails being like, "We're going to remove your inventory." I'm like, "Don't worry, people are going to buy the book. It's a great book."
Okay, I'll
But
definitely throw the link in. And it's on
thank
your
you.
website, right?
Yeah,
You buy it from
yeah,
your website. Okay.
yeah. You can buy it from my website. You can buy it from Amazon if you're in the States. It's in Barnes and Noble. It's on Audible. All the places. The long and the short of it was healthy kid, easy. Like literally, I had him. I walked to the hospital 8 hours later. I'm at home having pizza and watching like the Western finals for the NHL. Husband's a huge hockey fan. 2 months, we go on a trip. He's like struggling with colicky. I'm like the only one that can hold this kid. He's like super cranky. I thought if we took him to a chiro, I'd get him in alignment. After like 2-3 weeks of testing, and we were in Winnipeg, then come back here, they basically said, hey, like, we're really sorry, but like, we believe your kid to have spinal muscular atrophy, type 1. By the way, there's no current treatments. Our role will just be to keep your son comfortable, and we don't think he'll make his first birthday because he's declining so quickly. And you're like, oh, okay. And I was like, I really hope you're wrong. You can't be that smart. You're only a neurologist, which is like one of the top doctors with the most schooling. And then in November, I mean, we lived the majority, the rest of his life in Alberta Children's, and then the hospice that they have there, which is an incredible facility. And I'd be like, we're going home. It's going to be okay. And then we're like, oh my gosh, he's dying. And you do that enough. And finally at this 6-month mark, we just, our fight was always like, if he has fight, we have fight. But like, I also want to be okay to let him go.
Mhm.
Knowing for us, quality of life was a huge thing.
Yes,
And to watch him struggle for every breath was very difficult.
for
And
sure.
so, yeah, he passed away November 22nd, 2016. So it's been almost 6 years as we're recording this.
6 years, my goodness.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
there's those pictures of that hit home for me. One was I
Mhm.
gotta show it to you right here. It's so adorable. This one right here
Oh,
on Avenue
mm,
magazine with
yes.
oh,
Yeah. That was us bringing joy. Like, you're like, how we know you're dying. Okay, this sucks. And it's like, how do we have fun? How do we show up and smile more and bring joy? And I relate this. I'm like, you know what? You don't always get to choose your circumstances, but you get to choose your response. So I couldn't take him out of the 4 walls. I mean, you could have, but I'm not leaving the hospital with the doctors and the nurses and all the equipment. And so we're like, the 4 walls, what we've been given, we can't change that, but we can change our response.
right.
You change your response, you change your outcome every damn time. So the outcome is we do have these joyful moments. I remember that. Like, we were laughing, we're like, how ridiculous is this? We're stuck in a hospital on unit 3,
Yeah.
can't go anywhere, but like, we're wearing these silly masks. And I made the doctors all wear those in one of the round meetings. And like, you should have seen them. They're all, in residence and trying to be serious and prove that they're, know their medical stuff.
Oh.
And they were just laughing, and it was wild.
And look at his eyes, and just when I look at him, he looks like a happy boy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Was he um a strong warrior till the end, pretty much?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Like,
that's all.
honest,
Yeah.
that when he was like, you take off all of the breathing equipment and the feeding tubes. And I remember being like, I don't know if anyone's had to watch somebody die. But I was like, I thought it would have gone a lot faster. And it a little bit, it was a long process. And I remember just being like, are you done? Like, I'm like, is this your last breath? Because like when you're waiting for that moment, and I felt like he was being really brave. And it was in the moment that we just kind of switched. We took him for a bath
Yeah.
because that was where he was most at peace and super comfortable. You could just see him. And when we finally said, like, buddy, it's okay,
That was
that was it. And it just felt like he was holding on and almost like waiting for that permission. And then like there was just this beautiful exchange between him and my husband. And then so much peace, and then so much grief and sadness all at the same time.
hmm hmm
Hmm. Yeah.
And I think, that many months in, and you seeing a loved one, especially someone so no voice yet, can't walk. It's vulnerable, such a beautiful soul, and
Yeah.
you're helpless to enable this person. That's a tough place to be, isn't it?
Total, like you're like, are you okay? Are you comfortable? And they can't say, oh, could you adjust me? So this is all by feel, all by just like being in that moment, trying to be as present as possible, knowing
But
what we're
it's
expressing
a
with.
parent's touch. Mom and dads know, right?
Yep, they do.
You guys have devoted so much energy and time into this, and you don't realize the shock, right? And that now there's this
Mhm.
void for a while, all of a sudden.
Mhm. Mhm.
In that void, in that silence, yes, there are support systems and individuals out there for you, but no one can help you. It's you got to help yourself out of that and get yourself
Mhm.
into some light again. How did you do that? Because that's just, it's a tough place.
I think you said it exactly, what the biggest key to changing our story so that we didn't keep the shades drawn, we didn't stay in bed, we didn't like we put on, was that like we helped ourselves. And for my husband, it was totally different from myself. And for myself, I had a different way of navigating grief and the loss.
Yeah.
The two biggest things that I would say is that I just was like, I refused to let it swallow me whole. So I showed up, which meant like I showered, I put on makeup, I got out the door. I say I put on my power shoes, whether that be your running shoes and you went for movement, or I put on clothes that made me feel good. But the second most important thing is I asked for help. And whether that was like going to therapy, whether that was connecting with girlfriends, whether that was like, hey, I've got this idea, I want to honor my son, would you join me in that? I think we find so much shame in asking for help. And I have this quote, I'm going to see if I can find it. But it was like, we often don't want to ask people because we don't want to feel like an inconvenience or burden them. But what we don't allow them to do is people are actually wired to serve and wired to help. Like you look at a disaster, call it a hurricane, and then people will step up. And you, like, look at what happened here in Calgary when we had those massive floods. People were like, we need help. Random strangers. I remember going into some old man's basement in High River with my like designer hunter rubber boots. I'm like, oh
Oh yeah.
God, these are going to get trashed, because I didn't know the severity of it until you were there. And I'm hauling up like these ancient dolls and his family's history. He didn't know me, I didn't know him, but there was a call for help. And we're inherently good people. Like you want to help, whether it's writing a check, whether it's serving, whatever it is. And so I think there's power in just saying, hey, I'm not okay. And then asking for help and saying, hey, I need help. Could someone, I need to get out of the house, or could someone go do a workout with me? Or like, I'm really sad. The key here is that you remove the expectation of who shows up, because I put expectations of people that were really close in my life. And I just think they didn't know how. They got uncomfortable in death. They were like, oh, so they
Mhm.
retreated. I think that's where then people like get disappointed and frustrated. And they're like, well, I'm not going to ask for help because Susan didn't show up for me, and Susan should have showed up for me. Problem is you're shitting on Susan, which is just shitting on somebody. Like, you don't know what Susan's walking through. And like, I just trust the process now. I'm like, hey, it's me. I need some help. And then I'm like, oh, I can't wait to see who's going to show up. And like, I'm ready in anticipation. And it's often these random strangers on the internet or people in your community that you're like, wow, you're amazing. And that's how I've met some of my closest friends now. Because these people are like, I want to help you. And then I'm like, oh man, you're really cool. I love your energy and thanks for showing up. So it's like you change that. Navigating the tough stuff is a totally different story.
And things just start tumbling and going, right? And the wheel starts spinning. Yeah,
Mhm.
interesting. And that's the virality of change and positivity and good. And instead of focusing on darkness and, like you said, the assholes, it's focusing on the light and the good people.
Mhm.
And
Totally.
that energy is exchanged, and it's very powerful to focus there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, there's so many things that I'm amazed of you and in awe of you, Jessica. One
Oh,
is you are who you are online and in person.
thank you.
I met you at we were at, I think it was the Jack Singer or something. You were speaking at that one event, and then you and I were walked outside and we were talking. And I was like, holy smokes! I left our conversation and I was like, I felt better about myself.
Mm.
And you left me with a good feeling, and I was like, that's a good person. That's
Oh.
empowerment right there, especially after, again, what you had gone through. My mom was still around at that time, but I was in awe. And so thank you for that. And the other thing is, you know how you say that people must think you're on crack and wild and all these things. One thing I got to say is you did pause. You have gone within yourself, and it's not like you're on to the next thing and running around and chasing things, so
Mhm.
you're avoiding being with yourself. You have. I mean, you've written bring the joy.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that takes time to write a book.
Mhm.
Relive it every day. Again, on this
Mhm.
podcast, sharing the story all the time.
Mhm.
I mean, 2016 to today, it still hurts. It's still that the pain's still there. And I
Mhm.
don't think it'll ever go away. It's how you navigate through it, isn't it?
Mhm. A
Yeah.
1000%.
Yeah. When you look at your life, were you always an extrovert?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I remember my mom, and then you heard Sheryl Sandberg came out with her book.
Yeah.
Um, and it was so funny. My mom's like, don't be so bossy. Don't be so bossy. Like, I think I've always just had this very strong personality type, confident, assertive,
Hmm.
like, hey, I've got this wild idea. And I think that it helped that I looking back, like I've worked very hard at this, but for the most part, I don't really give two shits what people think about me, because I know that people are always going to have opinions of me. Why
Yes.
would you do that? That's stupid.
Yeah.
Oh, you think you can do that? Like, I had somebody comment, and my social media is 99% of the time amazing, positive, great people encouraging me. But I had someone like just rip into me for chewing gum and having my mouth open in a reel, because I chew a lot of gum. I have ADHD. I was at an event. I chose not to drink that night. So I was chewing gum because it would just help keep me distracted, because it's like, oh, I want a glass of wine. And I'm like, the person on the other, like, the people are always going to have the opinions. And so it really helps when you're like, man, it doesn't matter what the person in the bleachers who created a fake profile who doesn't follow you to comment on you, because that can really mess with your head. And it's really helped that I'm like, I know my true worth on the inside, and everyone can have their opinions and say the things about
Hmm.
me. But at the end of the day, I'm in check. I'm aligned with my values, and my heart is in the right spot. And if to somebody else it doesn't look right, or they didn't like what I said or how I showed up, that's just their opinion of me. But I'm just going to keep forging ahead on where I know I need to be and what I'm called to do.
For sure. And people make mistakes, and I think people can learn. And I don't think people need to get traumatized by failure. I think you can grow through what you're going through.
Yes. Oh, that's my everyday. Honestly, like, I looked at my bank account balance and my business was like, wow, most people would consider that a failure. And I'm like, this is just an opportunity to grow. You know what I mean? Like, you're
Yes.
like, we're all just figuring it out, and it's hard.
It is very hard, and especially in the times that we've all been in, right? Recently, it's like, what's the future hold? The uncertainty,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I think you learn to um, listen a little more, spend time with people that you admire a little, and you tune in, don't you? And you understand what they're going through. So,
Mm-hmm.
no, that's amazing. How did the foundation get started? Because, by the way, you guys have raised over $1 million now.
We're now in our verbiage, it says nearly 2 million, because we're really close to the $2 million mark, which is really exciting. I actually have to get an update, because for us to hit our goal this year, the goal is 400,000. We started our charity foundation in 2017. We started
Hmm.
a nonprofit, became an official charity in 2021. That was a way more crazy complicated. So now we can offer tax receipts. We do really incredible work.
Right.
But it was just our response to grief. It was our response to Like rather than sitting in the, why did my son die? Why does my life
Hmm.
suck? This was our like, so now what? And my son, now what was, is like Lewiston has a legacy and there's a lot of gaps in the SMA world. And there's a lot of good we can do with his life and his legacy and his story. And so this was our response to the
Right.
question, so now what? And it's been so cool. And the work that we do, I so believe in. And I have another big idea that we're probably going to talk about hopefully in the new year coming, like accessible house. I mean, I'm already leaking it. Accessible
Yeah,
housing.
exactly.
I'm like, there's such a gap in the market. I'm like, we're building houses across Canada that are actually accessible. My husband, I was talking about it to him last night. He's like, I could just see him being like, oh boy, here we go again.
There we go.
Jansen's got another crazy idea.
When you look at the fun you guys have, I mean, you guys have done the auctions,
Mhm.
the humans on the stage. I think they're
Yeah.
selling off people, and oh my God, every you know, creating the Love for Lewiston Foundation is a celebration of life every day, isn't it?
hmm 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 It's
Uh,
making it's like celebrating the moments. I just wonder if people would celebrate the moments a little bit more. Like I celebrate like my kid, I'm in toddler stages, like he screams and loses his ever loving blessed mind over like not having the orange cup. Like yesterday morning, and I wanted to just flip my lid and be like, "Are you effing kidding me?" But I was like, "I'm gonna just enjoy this moment because
yeah,
why? My kid's got a voice. He's got healthy lungs. He's able to tell me, communicate, do all these things. It's like just shifting perspective, just making the moments matter. And trust me, I flip my lid as a parent where I'm like, if you don't shut up in the back of the car, like I'm turning around and you're never getting your iPad again. Like I'm not trying to paint that I'm a saint. I'm not. What I want people to hear is like, just change your perspective on the moments, these small little bits. Man, I'm going for a walk. Holy crap, I've got legs. I got out of my car. I didn't need anybody's help. And
mhm,
guess what? I wiped my own ass today.
yeah,
That is joy. That is blessing. That is gratitude. Do that. Those little moments compound big. And then you're like, holy shit, I'm living my best life.
yeah.
This is friggin' amazing.
You know,
Trust me, I had $12 in my business bank account a couple days ago. 12 friggin' dollars. Like my life is far from perfect, people.
mhm.
But like, I'm just not going to let the $12 determine everything else in my life.
No. You know, it's funny though when you're in that state where, yes, things could look perfect, but it's not. And you don't need to always highlight the negative, right? Like you said, you know, I have down days just like anybody else.
Mhm,
But my dog will kind of indirectly force me, Dad, let's go for a walk. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to
mhm,
go for a walk. But you go
mhm,
for that walk
mhm.
and you're happy, you're light, you're free, your shoulders are down. There's something about it. For anybody that's struggling with mental health or going through something,
Mhm.
that you had gone through, what are some tips that you could give and some advice?
Take a deep breath. That's where you're going to just start. Like you're just going to take a deep breath because I know all too well what it feels like when a million thoughts are coming at you, telling you you're worthless, you're stupid, your life is messed up. There's lots of other choice words that I would use. So in this moment, if you are navigating that and your brain is offering you a lot of bad, dark, scary stuff, you're just going to take a deep breath. Take a couple of those.
Mhm.
And then you have to ask for help. You have to tell somebody that you're not okay. And there's amazing amounts of crisis lines. And the most practical thing that I can tell someone to start with is just this gratitude piece. And then people are like, my life sucks and whatever. And this isn't rocket science. It's proven to change brain chemistry, but you got to get moving and you got to start with some gratitude. And I didn't thank myself and thank my body and thank God for my own legs. Like I just took them for freaking granted. Like my arms move, I can button up my own shirt, I can fluff my hair, pick my nose, wipe my butt. That's where you can start. If those are the things, it's like, man, I was able to go to the bathroom and wipe my own butt today. How great is that? Like, man, I got to like there's food in my fridge and clothes in the closet. And you know, like I've got rotting milk because I probably should do a fridge clean out, whatever. Just start with a list of gratitude and then get moving, just at one step in front of the other. And your brain will fight you all the way if you are in a very dark spot. But what I want you to know is it is possible to rewire your brain. It's like neuroscience. You can rewire your brain. So if you just do a tiny bit of work each
Right.
day, your life can totally change.
Interesting. You know, it's yeah, we always focus on the big picture, and like you said, you only got $12 in your bank account, but what about, oh, I need to make this much money, I need to become this successful in life, and we're always chasing that,
Mm, mhm,
and we forget all the little things, don't we?
mhm. That's why I was like today. I was like, I'm run club. We're today. This is awesome. This is my goodness. Because like I picture, and I don't know why my therapist was like, "Well, you just have a really high awareness of mortality." Like it's just that's how my life is. Like if I get hit by a bus, amazing. I'm going all in. My life has been amazing. I just think that just like if something happens today, if it's my day is marked, if I was only given, my son was given 179 days. If you were only given 179 days, how would you show up? What would you change? What would shift?
We oftentimes think we need to be good enough, but enough is just that's what you need to be. You just need to be enough. You don't need to be good enough. You can just be you. Yeah.
That's it. Make peace with that.
Mhm.
Game changer.
So if someone wants your book and if someone wants to donate, what can they do, Jess?
Okay, donate loveforlewiston.ca. I don't know when this is going out. We're in Thanksgiving, but I will say I had a goal of 60 grand, and in the last week we have had more than 7 applications of families coming to us and saying like, we need a wheelchair. I want my kid to be in physiotherapy, but like my insurance has been tapped out since February. And so we're putting out a call to action to our community, whether it is $5 or $10, 200, 2,000. If you want to write me a check for 100,000, we take it all. You can donate at loveforlewiston.ca, and every single dollar and moment, maybe your company and you've got some matching programs. I'm happy to come in and speak to your company, tell people about why we do what we do, where we're pouring in the funds. It would mean the world. And then if you want to connect with me, it's on social media at the Jessica Janzen. I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram. Those are my 2 platforms of choice. And my book's on Amazon or it's on Audible. So get it. It's a really fun, light read. You can find out about my Costa Rican lover, my romance with my husband, Hot Ronnie, and our journey with Lewiston and how we are bringing the joy to the everyday.
Perfect. Well, thanks for your time today, Jess.
Yeah, you're amazing. Thanks for having me, Zach.
Pleasure.
And then let's connect. I feel like you and I've got some more.